All right. I mean, this is something which we do cover off when we teach on the intensive coaching skills course. We look a bit at some questions which might um, interrogate some of these tendencies in our thinking or in our clients' thinking. So a generalization is very simply when somebody might say, "Oh, you can never get anything done here," or "I'm always the victim in these situations."
Mm.
And you might just simply challenge and say, "Always. There's no exception to this. When has this not been the case?" So you can just simply challenge a generalization.
Hmm.
A distortion might be something where they've come to a conclusion about something using logic which doesn't necessarily stack up. You know, so if I give you a humorous example,
Hmm. Please
somebody
do.
might say, um, if you wear huge trousers, you get fat, as opposed to the
Yes, you
actual
would.
you know um,
To,
that's
to make them not fall down, you would have to be.
it's a
Yeah.
facetious example, but it's something where we might be coming to the wrong conclusion based on
Mm. Mm.
um, an incomplete analysis of what's actually happening.
Yeah.
A deletion is when you take out important data from how you're expressing something. So you might say, this might sound like a generalization, but you might say something like, it's not a very healthy culture here.
Hmm.
Now that could be a generalization, but what's missing is in what way is it not
Mm.
healthy? Um, what are examples of it not being healthy? What's missing in your description of the culture that might help enrich your understanding of it? So things which are missing from the picture. And so this is all about paying attention to language, and
Mm.
within that there's a subset of just thinking about how people are um, actually thinking about things in their mind, and they might reveal in the way that they talk. They might reveal whether they're highly visualizing something. They
Hmm.
might use lots of visual language. They might say, "When I look ahead, I see a bright future." And coming towards me, I can envisage, and you hear that kind of visual language.
Hmm.
Um, Other people might go, "Well, look, I feel a bit down about this. Everything's feeling a bit heavy," and they might give you what some people would call kinesthetic language, which could be emotional feeling, or it could be actually physical feeling. Things feel hard to me, you know, or people are constantly bashing their heads together,
Hmm.
and that kind of thing. And some people, a minority, I would say, in my experience, do think quite a lot in terms of sound. They'll go, "Oh yeah, that's what my boss told me," and yeah, I remember Mum used to tell me that when I was a kid, and no, I can't hear myself saying that to the boss.
Mm.
Um, and so all I'm saying here, Hugh, is that these things do have resonance with how people are thinking. Um, they're not necessarily absolute analogs, So some things are in common language, aren't they?
Hmm.
So look on the bright side might not actually imply that they have to have a visualization because it's just a common phrase, you
Yeah.
know. But so we're looking for patterns. And we're just looking for things which might be of interest to them if they're constantly in their feelings, for example. What would it be like if they envisaged a different future?
Mm. Could it also be aspects of their life that aren't being covered? So if I'm just wondering about a deletion being if home life is difficult and you're only talking about work life, for example, is that a massive deletion in the conversation, or
Very,
you're
very good question.
avoiding something, or you're not,
Yeah,
it's not in scope of the conversation, and yet
yeah.
it's affecting the conversation.
Yeah, I can give you an example of this very thing. I used to work quite a lot in various ministries in the
Hmm.
civil service, and often I'd ask somebody to tell me about themselves, a little bit of biography at the beginning of a coaching relationship. And I noticed with these people in particular, they would often start their biography with when they started their career.
Mm.
Yeah, tell me about yourself. Well, I joined the civil service when I was 22. So what about upbringing? What about childhood? What about your education? Very often that's deleted in
Mm.
their narrative about themselves. They think of themselves, identify with their careers so fully that they don't necessarily think about what happened before them,
Mm.
what's influenced them even to take that career.
Yeah, it sounds a really impoverished coaching conversation if all we can talk about is the CV and, the formal sort of YouTube or Instagrammable presentation to the world.
Yeah.
Coaching conversations are different, right?
Well, they are, and we have the ethos, as you know, that we coach the whole person. That they're not just who they are at work; they are who they are. And what's made them who they are is a very important part of who they are. So if, for example, some people just start by thinking about their career, what were the lessons in life they learned before that?
Mm,
How did they come to construct their view of themselves before they joined the civil service? So I'm not saying we have to take them there, but we have to be able to take them there.
yeah.
We have to have that capacity to spot what they're thinking, how they're thinking, and if it's helpful, to take them there, to take them somewhere different.
Yeah. So you're like showing them the door to get into another room of thinking rather than just staying within the room they think they have to stay in, perhaps.
Nice way of putting it. Yeah.